My opposition to euthanasia is not speculative, it's not abstract, it's not theoretical, it is experiential because I watched doctors kill my father in front of my family on a family member's birthday.
Tell me about your father's life.
Growing up, my dad was a complex man. He was, in many ways, a very loving father. He was very, very proud of having his kids. He would hug you very quickly. He was an affectionate guy, but he also had a dark side. And I noticed this as a teen. He would talk about drifting off into Georgian Bay on a canoe, never to return again. And he would talk about deaths he witnessed in the police. And it wasn't until years later that I saw that as indicative of somebody who's deeply traumatized or deeply depressed. But that was the dark side of him. The light side was this loving, jovial man who would laugh heartily.
Were you concerned that he would commit suicide long before euthanasia was ever legal?
Absolutely. My dad had been suicidal in the past. I dealt with it at different times. And so when MAID came along, it was the perfect flattery. It's telling him suicide is okay. It's telling him, it's dignity. It's somehow even beautiful or something like this.
On what basis did your father apply for and be deemed eligible for euthanasia? 2
months after the government expanded euthanasia for people who were not imminently dying, my father applied for it under that new law. He had arthritis, diabetes, chronic conditions like that. None of them were imminently fatal, and that's how he applied for MAID.
He was approved on that basis?
He was approved on that basis, as far as we can tell. Frailty was another reason.
Some proponents of euthanasia have said that family members are their biggest problem. What do you think about that?
I find that remarkable. The people most affected by a MAID death before and after it occurs, outside of the person dying, are the family members. We're the ones who have to live with the grief, the anticipation of the upcoming death, the questions, especially if there's doubt about the qualifying illness, if we weren't consulted, but also there is no legal requirement for the assessors to reach out to family members. In our case, we weren't contacted about my father's MAID until 2 days before he died.
Did the news of your father's impending death by euthanasia come as a shock?
It shocked us that he applied, and then it shocked us again because he was killed halfway through the 90-day assessment period for people whose deaths aren't reasonably foreseeable. It was a Wednesday. We got a call from his provider. A provider is the term they use for the person who administers the lethal injection, and that person is also an assessor. In this case, it was a doctor, and said that essentially that your dad's scheduled to die on Friday, and if you want to see him before he dies, you have 2 days to get here. So you have to move quickly. I pushed for a last-minute psychiatric assessment, and then after he died, I managed to get a copy. It's one of the few documents I have about his MAID, is a slightly redacted copy of his psychiatric assessment, and it's full of errors. Claims he wasn't suicidal, and he had this whole history of suicidality. It states that he didn't think he was depressed, and yet on the list of medications, it lists antidepressants.
Did you hope until the last moment that you might be able to change his mind?
Absolutely. I tried to explain to him that he couldn't kill himself on a family member's birthday, that was wrong. I tried a soft touch, I tried a hard touch.
Now, tell me about the day of and being in the room.
I mean, that was the worst day of my life. That day and those moments in that room, there's nothing. I've been through some things in my life, and there's absolutely nothing that compares to it. We were lost. All of us are trying to make sense of a situation that defies sense. The provider was sitting beside me, like on a couch, right next to me, injecting very large syringes of propofol, which looks like milk, and other drugs into my father and taking his life. His head flopped down on his bed when he went unconscious. He was propped up. A few seconds before, he'd been animated, and then he was a corpse.
Christopher, what gives you the strength to speak out and share your story on this?
I can't not. You know, sometimes things happen to you in your life and you're compelled to speak out.
How can we be there for each other in the midst of a euthanasia society?
I think we have to find each other. We can share our experiences, we can share our emotions, find support groups. I have had no trouble in the suicide group I belong to. You'll be accepted there. People recognize MAID as suicide. I've shared my story because it's been a help to me to share it. And it might be help to you to share your story too. Please feel free to share this video with other people. You never know how your story or my story might be a help to somebody else.